Hello again. Welcome to Eternally Bored. I am your host, Charles Washington, and this is my co host.
Trey Chambers.
We're here today with a very special guest, uh, Abbie Drozek-Fitzwater,
Hello.
who is, I guess, what is the best way to say it, a good, long personal friend of both of ours for a while, member of our gaming group. But maybe you have a little bit to add about yourself, Abbie?
Sure. I am a gamer. I've been playing games, I guess serious type games, for about 7 years, I would say. I'm part of the famed Cafe Express board game group in Houston. I play games a lot with Trey and Charles, so we kind of know each other through that.
Yeah, and you're in education too, is that correct?
Yes, so I actually work for a nonprofit called PAIR, and we do after-school programs and mentoring programs for refugee middle schoolers and high schoolers. So I run an after-school program, and I run a mentoring program and summer camps.
Excellent. Well, thanks for joining us today. And we are Eternally Bored. Basically, we're a gaming podcast that we talk about board games, but we also talk about various social issues that affect the gaming community and the gaming industry as a whole. So today we're going to be talking about gender issues in the community, and also we're going to talk about ways that we can interact better in the community, and lastly we're going to talk about Suburbia. We haven't played enough new games this week to justify a played new games segment, so instead we're going to take another in-depth look as we did with Terraforming Mars in episode 4 or 5. Yeah.
This has been another busy week of researching and backing Kickstarting projects that are ending, and you still actually have a Kickstarter up, correct?
But when this gets published, it will be finished. But our second edition has already funded, and it was successful. You could probably still do like a... What do they do that when the Kickstarter is over, but you can still pledge?
Early pre-order period.
Yeah, they open
late pledge.
Yeah, they
late
pledges. Yeah, they open pledge manager to the consternation of fans who backed it because then they're like, you could have helped us unlock more stretch goals, but whatever. So anyway, let's go ahead and start with our topic du jour, which is gender issues in board gaming. The first question that I have, or topic, is how have our experiences been at public meetups? And I guess start with Abbie, because she has the most pertinent experience to this topic.
Sure, so first of all, also to postpone any negative reactions, I'll say that...
You can't stop it.
Can't stop it. I will say first that my good experiences have far outweighed any bad experiences I've had. Obviously, I'm still in the board gaming community, so nothing so terrible has happened to drive me away. So in general, especially our group here in Houston is a really awesome group, really supportive people, everyone's friendly. It's a fairly diverse group as far as that goes. I'm rarely the only woman at the group. We usually have 2 or 3 or even more. So it's kind of nice to look forward to not being the only female there.
Yeah, I have noticed there have been more and more, well, I don't really go anymore, but around the time when I stopped going, there were a lot more females going than there were before, so that was good.
Yeah, and generally I found there's more women in summer than we get like during the rest of the year, right? So this is sort of like the heavy period.
That might be true.
The heavy period.
Summer.
Oh man!
I was
going
going
off the rails already.
No.
So you have expertise in.
It was very funny. That was meant in the. Literally, anyway, so usually during the summer session and winter break is when we have the largest influx of like new people in general, and
yeah,
thankfully,
that's definitely true.
And it's actually we usually have a greater influx of women than we do new guys.
Right, and I've actually sort of seen a little bit of an evolution in this, because I feel like the first couple times I went, most of the women there were maybe significant others or spouses of the guys at the group, but now I've seen a lot more women who are not attached to someone at the group who are just coming because they want to play games. So I think the word is getting out there a little better. We're doing better at inviting women.
I've also noticed that at BGG-Con, where when I used to go to BGG-Con many years ago, the only women there would be wives and girlfriends. But in the past few years, I've noticed many more just single women just going there to play games, which is really awesome.
It is good. It means we're doing better.
Well, definitely one of the things that you might experience more than, or I don't really experience that much, but you might more than me, is sort of like, the patterns of people and problems that seem to come in when you have a new gamer that comes into the community, and she happens to be a woman in that sphere. Because one of the things that I've always found is, what's the best way to put it? Yes, piranha to blood type of situation. Whenever
you just can't get off blood.
whenever. These are good analogies, man. These are good analogies. It's sort of like whenever I see, in the past, when I would see a new woman come to a gaming meetup, there were a lot of men who would sort of bombard, but then that would also be a situation where it would be the only woman who would show up into an event. Not really in our current Cafe Express, but in some of the other events that I've been at, some of the collectible card game events and collectible miniatures and other just gaming groups I've been to. It's been sort of a bombardment. I was wondering what kind of experiences that were problems that you've had in the past, and has that improved as things have, progressed with more women entering the community?
I guess I've probably experienced some bombardment. I've also experienced the complete opposite of that. So the very first time I went to a board gaming group, I was invited by a person in the group, and he must not have been aware that this was apparently a guys-only group, unofficially.
Boys
I
club.
had no idea. The person who invited me had no idea. I went completely unaware, just intending to play some board games, because I had recently gotten into, dare I say, Dominion.
I hate them.
Not too much anymore. But at the time, that was the game that I was playing, so I thought, hey, I should go check this out. And I got there, and people were not happy. I got some pretty interesting reactions from people. There was one guy in particular who just basically never let up on the sexist comments and jokes for the entire evening.
Oh, jeez.
He refused to play any games with me. He pointedly sat down at any game that I was not playing. So, thankfully that only happened once. I never went back to that gaming group again. But it was a little bit shocking. Wasn't expecting that.
Well, you go to the Cafe Express gaming group now. About how many gaming groups did you try out before you found one in your area?
Well, I've moved around a lot, so I never really found a good gaming group in Ohio. That was when I was in college in Ohio. Never really found a good gaming group there, but I found, of all places, in Jackson, Mississippi, an excellent board gaming group.
Mm-hmm. What else are you going to do in Jackson, Mississippi?
I guess there's nothing else to do there.
Sorry, Mississippians.
It's getting better, from what I've heard, right? I don't want to get rid of our 2 Jackson, Mississippi fans. Well, we might have 10. We could get 15 today if you only tune in.
A fan might be stretching. Sorry. And the Cafe Express group is the second group that I've been a part of in Houston. And I really had no issues with the previous group, except that it was a far drive, and I actually was the only woman there most of the time, but people were pretty nice.
That's good. What about at conventions like BGG Con? What's that been like?
Mostly pretty welcoming. I do find it can be a little strange if I'm playing an all-day game with people and I'm the only woman playing one of those, long games that will take up 10 hours.
12 hours.
But it's usually pretty comfortable. I've never had any terribly uncomfortable situations at the convention. Part of it might be because I'm not by myself. I'm usually there with my husband or with male friends, so I think they tend to shield me a little bit from some things that might happen if I were there as a single woman.
Well, yeah, because you're really into the dedicated wargaming community, right? So
Less wargaming. I do the 18xx games, which are awesome. And I like to play Republic of Rome, which takes all day, and it's amazing.
That's like a political
It has some war. It's semi-cooperative, semi-competitive. political.
It's like the OG semi-co-op game, because that game is old as hell.
It is, but it's awesome. Everyone should play at least once.
Cool. Well, so problematic behavior that you identify, like, would you say like some people kind of like are sharks, like looking for single women at these events?
Or would you say that more people are like guppies out of water, just sort of floundering around like awkward fish, like getting you wet, and you're like, please, stay away?
I've experienced many more guppies than sharks, unfortunately.
Goldine.
So many awkward
Sorry.
people. Because some of these, I mean, you're going to get this in any group that has a lot of nerds in it. Some nerds just don't have a whole lot of social awareness, and we do get lots of just unfortunate staring, unfortunate hugging without asking. Yes.
Hugging without asking.
That is definitely a problematic behavior. You know what has never happened to me as a board gamer in a decade of playing board games? No board gamer has ever hugged me at any meetup. So,
welcome to my life.
Except JR Honeycutt, if you know that guy. He's a very affectionate man, but and a lovely man. But other than him, no one has ever hugged me. So don't randomly hug women, especially women you don't really know.
I sort of hug groups of people. I mean, admittedly, I'm a random hugger, but
well, we know you.
Yeah, that's true.
I'll
only hug you with your.
From you.
Yeah,
yes.
I'll only hug you with your husband at the same time.
Yeah,
so.
No, it's fine.
And he has the arms to do it.
If you're an established friend of mine, feel free to hug me. If I just met you today and I've played one game with you, please don't hug me, or at least ask first. Maybe don't just come up and hug me without warning. I might react badly. So.
And generally, the things we're talking about today have to do with like people you don't know intimately, because obviously you're going to act differently with close friends than you act with strangers, and the whole process of making the board game community more welcoming is about that stranger-to-stranger interaction, because obviously if they're your close friends, you're going to have your own rapport, and you're probably not going to do anything that would offend them. But let's kind of use that to segue into our top 3 ways of making the community more welcoming for all genders. And I have number 3. I kind of collaborated with Abbie. I don't know if you've changed yours since then, but
no, they're the same.
Oh, okay, and then Charles made his own. But I'll start with my number 3. Have more social awareness. Don't hug people you barely know, as we just discussed. And don't make sexist jokes even in good humor. And that's really the problem that I see a lot, is like men just making overtly sexist jokes in front of women, thinking like, oh, I'm sure they have a sense of humor and they'll be chill about it. But you don't know that. They could be really offended. If you don't know them as a person, you don't know how your jokes are going to affect them. So if it's someone you barely know, and this goes for all genders, whatever, just be careful with what you say. It's not about like, oh, being PC. It's just about being polite, and you don't know what their sense of humor is like. So until you get to know them better, maybe dial down on any jokes that could be offensive until you get to know them.
And tied into that would be language that you use directed at women as well. I've been called a little girl. Yes.
Lassie?
I've been called a wench today.
Today
I was called a wench.
But that was my friend.
That was my friend. But I've been called names that I don't think people would call a man in that situation. I don't think you'd call a man that you're playing board games with a little boy. That would be weird. So just think about what you're calling people.
Yeah. And your number 3?
My number 3 thing, just to, make the community more welcoming for women, is actually personal hygiene.
Oh, God, yes.
This happens both at every single gaming group that I've been to on a daily basis, and usually like at a 30-20% rate, you'll have someone who is sort of stinky or has terrible breath. And in conventions, this is literally a slope that I watch people fall on, as if their only shower was on the Wednesday before they came up, and then they spent the rest of the time sleeping in their car between hotel visits, and need to bum a shower off someone that they happen to know or meet at the convention just to get sort of clean. I think I mean, I guess this is not just for women, but women have better senses of, well, smell than us. So
I did
so
some research.
please
It
do
is
that.
scientifically, there's scientific evidence for that. So
Correct. So just shower. That's it.
Yeah, that's a great thing on the gender topic, but just a great thing all around. I'm sure the lovely listeners of this podcast don't have that problem, but maybe tell your friends if they have a problem as well. The main reason I stopped going to that Cafe Express meetup was because I had to sit next to someone for like an hour game, and it was just like I almost walked away, and I was like, I can't handle this anymore. Like, I'm too old now. Like, when I was younger, I had more tolerance, being around nerds at conventions that did not shower, and I just kind of dealt with it. But now I'm just like, I'm an adult. I don't want to be around someone who doesn't bathe for any length of time.
It is an after work game group. So some people
It
do
is. Some
literally
people
come
do.
after work and do manual labor, and
There's deodorants, there's
I
colognes,
do bring gum
mask
though.
it.
I bring a big pack of gum and I offer it to everyone at my table, like as a communal thing. I don't force anyone to take the gum, but who's gonna turn down gum if it's
That's
offered
smart and polite.
to you? Yes.
So all right. So my number 2, don't invite women to play lighter or games without conflict just because they're women, and don't assume people want to play a certain character or game because of their gender. This is something that I've witnessed many times where it's like, oh, we have a girl who wants to play now. Do you want to play this party game even though we were about to play this 18xx game? Maybe explain the 18xx game to them, and then if they don't want to play it, they can say that. But don't just assume like, oh, a woman wants to play with us, so now we have to dumb down the game that we're going to play. I mean, that's just silly. You don't know their preferences. Abby loves 18xx games, for example. So, tell them about the game and then make a decision.
Mm-hmm. I've had this experience quite a bit, especially when you're actually, I was guilty of this myself on Thursday. It wasn't really because a new lady came to the game who wanted to play. It was just like I really didn't want to explain Terra Mystica or Terraforming Mars or Puerto Rico again.
Well, Terra Mystica is like a 30-minute teaching requirement, so I can understand not wanting to just explain it.
And I want people to know exactly what they're getting to. But she got into it, and she was fine with it, so I enjoyed that. Have you had experience like when you're?
Yes. Don't just make assumptions. I mean, explain the game and be honest and say, hey, this is a tough game. But if she hears that description and decides, hey, I still want to play it, then great.
Yeah.
Let her decide. Don't decide for her.
To flip the script on this is a side question, but have you ever had problems being a woman gamer explaining to another woman gaming a game? Like, have you ever found like the absolute flip side where it's like they're less willing to take advice from you?
I've had situations where I'm explaining the rules to a group of men and they interrupt me and won't let me explain the rules.
Yeah, that segues into my number 1, but let's get Charles's number 2 first. Oh wait, real quick.
No.
Besides just the game, also the characters and player pieces don't hand a female pink. Yeah, obviously, and
hand it to your buddy.
Yeah,
they love it.
Exactly. And also, like, if you're playing a game with miniatures or like it has a art, like character art, don't just assume that the girl wants to play the girl. Sometimes I like to play the female characters. Sometimes women like to play the male characters. What does it matter? It's a game.
And some of us just like our favorite color, gender dimorphic. I guess dysmorphic. I can't remember the exact word for it. It doesn't matter what the gender is.
Yeah.
Well, my number 2 is be ruthless, man.
I like this one.
Do absolutely crush any woman that you're playing against, especially if there's some sort of what's the best way to say it? Some guy who is stupid enough to think that they're not figuring out what's going on, especially when a woman says they don't quite get what's happening in the game. That is when you need to double down and crush them even more.
We are especially talking about a particular friend of ours who always says that she doesn't understand what's going on and then inevitably beats us. We don't buy that excuse anymore.
Right. So.
But to Charles's point, I think he's just saying, like, don't hold back on any opponent. I mean, this also. I even
You,
reminded it in a
I
sentence.
did. Go ahead.
This also applies to playing with children. I mean, I'm sure at some point we'll do an episode about that, but like, don't hold back. I mean, maybe if you're playing like a 3-year-old, but when you're playing older children, like, it's important that they, you know, have some actual competition so that they learn to compete. And if you dumb it down and just let them win, then they're not really getting the full experience out of the game. But so with any opponent, I don't think you should hold back. I mean,
also, women don't need you to dumb it down for them, so
exactly.
please
Yeah,
don't.
yeah.
We usually figure it out.
And then win
Yes.
and emasculate certain people at the table.
So that segues into your number one, right?
Yeah. So don't mansplain games. And what I mean by that, and this is actually a really fine line, because when you're explaining something, I've seen it go the other way. Like, I've been accused of mansplaining when I'm literally just expressing my opinion. So it's like, how do I express my opinion that it doesn't come off as mansplaining? Is something that I have to constantly ask myself. But when you're explaining a board game, like, you know, just explain it like you would to anyone else. Why would you assume that a woman would have a hard time understanding a game? If she's at a game meetup and she's a gamer, she understands games. So just explain it. Don't like, I mean, I've seen so many people try to explain a game and they like use like you know, 3rd grade language in explaining it. I'm just like, are you kidding me? That's
Or-
very condescending behavior.
Or the explanation is not required because they've already played that game 10 times.
You had that happen?
Oh, this happens to me every week.
Oh,
I
God.
will go to Cafe Express, I will play a game that I've played 12 times, 15 times, and like, this happens to us all. I forget one minor rule, and I make the grave mistake of saying, hey, can someone remind me, what do you do when this happens? That is the ticket to have the rest of the game explained in detail to me. They just assume, not everyone, there's a couple individuals in particular who are guilty of this. They'll just assume that I need everything re-explained, and they'll give me the entire rundown of the rules again. I don't need that. Like, I know how to play this game. You've seen me play this game. I play it frequently. I just wanted help with one little rule. That's all. So, yeah, this happened. You can tell I'm getting annoyed. This happens to me all the time.
Yeah, and have you noticed, like, when men are explaining games to you, that their tone, like, changes?
Yes, or it's just directed straight to me, because I might be at a table where I'm new, 3 other people are also new, but those 3 other people are not getting the same in-depth rules that I am. It's directed at me, they're constantly leaning over and reminding me of things, so yes, I do get special treatment when I learn new games.
Fun times.
Especially Bora Bora.
Oh my gosh.
So me and Abby
Oh my
have
gosh.
the misfortune of having both our shared experience for worst explanation of
I
a
think
game
Trey
is
was playing that
together.
too.
And Trey was here, so the 3 of us.
Oh
were,
my God.
But I was the only one listening to the rules, so
I
in this
gave
case
up.
it was good that he was explaining to the woman
Yeah.
because none of y'all were listening. So.
But this wasn't sexism. This was a drunk
was
guy
drunk.
at
Oh,
BGG
so drunk.
who tried to explain Bora Bora to us for like an hour, and I didn't get up and walk away just because it was so funny. But wow, what was the thing he kept saying?
The man and the woman.
The man and the
need a
woman.
man,
And a woman.
You need a woman. And he couldn't. He
And he also-
couldn't say the word shells. He kept referring to them as shekels.
And also, like, he kept just saying, it's simple, right? Like, he would say a sentence and it wouldn't make any sense, and it's like, simple, you know? This
then
game
he
is so
would-
simple, how can you not figure it out?
Then he would kind of shake his head slowly and go, "It's a silly game. This is a silly game."
That has nothing to do with today's
I
topic,
walked
but it was a
away.
funny anecdote.
I walked away at some point of this game, and then our friend Eric came by and explained the game
In
in
about
5
10 minutes.
for
Yeah.
about 15 minutes. But the problem was so our explanation was 75 minutes of how to play Bora Bora, of which an hour was rambling incoherency. But
But we knew that we needed a man and a woman, both.
yes,
We
and
needed both.
only the woman got his explanation. only you. All right. My last topic is just when you come to a meetup and you play a game with a woman. I've noticed this quite a bit. Do not be a hater. Uh, this is not every woman who ever slighted you in the past. You do not. This is not. You're not in your safe area amongst men playing games. There are other people, and I try to tell people this all the time. On the other hand, instead of just the really bitter people, I try to tell some people this is also not your John Hughes movie moment. This woman in the movie is not just there for you. Actually, she really doesn't know who you are. She is there for the game, and just leave it at that. So.
All right. Any final thoughts? I think we covered all the bases.
Yeah, I'm done with all my bases today.
Do you have more Fury jokes for us?
No, let's put a stop to that. Hey! Sorry, I'm terrible with puns. All right, well then, let's move on to our discussion of Suburbia. We're basically just going to talk about some strategies, how we feel about the game. Which should we start with first? Let's go with the review portion, because if people don't care about Suburbia, they'll probably stop listening after that. But Suburbia is, how would you say, it's a tile placement.
It's a SimCity board game tile placement, basically.
Yeah.
You basically make a simulated city with boroughs that interact with each other.
2 to 4 players in the base game. Takes about 90 minutes? An hour? No. Yeah, it's only an hour. It's not that
It's
long.
an hour, yeah. It's about 15 minutes per experienced player and 25 minutes per new player.
Yeah, that
So
sounds about right.
it goes fairly fast. But basically, it's a city building game, and there's a lot of interaction with all the tiles that occurs. And I think it's one of my personal favorites because I like city building. And
It is actually a favorite game of many people in our game group, especially the Cafe Express crowd.
correct.
Surprising amount of people, because I like the game, I really do, but to me it's just kind of I'm still waiting for like the amazing SimCity simulation game. It doesn't exist. Suburbia is, I guess, the closest thing, but to me it doesn't. I don't know. It doesn't quite ring for me, but I mean it's good. It's just I think it's too abstract for me. Like there's no roads or anything. You're just kind of like matching colors, and the buildings do various abilities. But I don't feel like I'm building a city. I feel like more I'm playing an abstract game, and that's one of the problems I have with it. And then the other problem I have with it is it's kind of fiddly in that when you get these tiles, you have to kind of update like everything, and it like could trigger multiple people's buildings, and like so you have to be paying close attention to every little thing in the game. And if you forget one thing of upkeep, it could like throw stuff off. So that is the other reason. But again, I think it's a good game. I'm not as amazed by it as others in our group.
Right. And you spent more time playing it than any of us, correct? 2-player.
I've played a lot. It's been a good bit of time since I've played, but for a while there, we were playing it every week. So I think it's great for 2, 3, or 4 players. I've never played a bad game of Suburbia. It has a lot of variety in what kind of tiles can come out, which I think is part of what makes the game so fun, because the game mechanics are fairly simple, but the game really depends on which tiles are going to come out. They're not the same tiles every game. You can only plan ahead to a certain extent, and it's always a little bit of a surprise.
And one thing, for a lot of people that some people like it, some people don't, the general strategy of the game is that you're trying to raise your income really high at the beginning, and then you convert that income into reputation or population at the end. And some people don't like the fact that it has this steady goal that you're trying to do. It's the game itself, that is the baseline strategy, but how you get there and accomplish it is really sort of the meat of the game itself. And
Yes.
that's probably one of the strategies that we're here to talk about today, because a lot of tiles exist in the game, and we were going to sort of name some of the tiles that we thought were best at implementing the overall strategy and keeping things going on. And some of them are good starting income, some of them are great maintaining or keeping conversions. So I guess I'll start. One of my favorite tiles in the game, even though some might say it's not, is the law office. It basically, in Suburbia, you have goals that you are trying to achieve, some public, some private. The law office lets you tie one of those goals and win, or if you double it, you can tie 2 of the goals and win on the goals. The goals are usually game changing at the end, and there's nothing better than usually people will try to keep tied with you just to deny you the points, and the law office sort of blows that strategy out the water. So you can even stay at 0 and still win like a fewest award, one of the fewest awards.
We should probably point out real quick, the law office is not in the base game, it's in the expansion of the game.
Yeah. Suburbia has
Expansion.
2 expansions. The first one is really good. It adds these borders that you put around your city, and the borders have different abilities. I thought that was a really neat expansion, and I would always want to play with that. I haven't played with, was it 5 Star? Is that the name of it?
Yeah, 5 stars.
Not good.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
But they both give it bad reviews. Pretty much all the reviews I've read about the 5 Star expansion have been negative.
Yeah, I would probably say it's unfortunately it's a expansion that has that's so bad you can't play with it as written. You sort of have to.
I would agree, actually.
Yeah.
That's a pretty negative review.
Um,
Yes. What change do y'all make to it when y'all play with 5 Star?
So basically, the 5 Star, I feel like when he constructed the expansion, I have no evidence of this. He made a set of tiles that would sort of balance and flesh out the game to make all of the strategy. There's like 4 different strategies to get there, sort of balanced. And then he added a new star mechanic, and anything that's centered around the new star mechanic is sort of priced for the stars, and it's sort of a very bad system, so they're almost unusable, just because a tile might have 4 stars and it's priced at this much money because it has 4 stars, because it'd be a big switch in that. But ultimately, the star system would break tiles like the law office, because it makes a new system of tying and breaking ties on goals, and it also leads to some really bad turn order problems.
Yes, really bad.
So is that what y'all change? Y'all change the turn order thing or the tie thing or both?
We literally just play Suburbia Inc. with like maybe 30 to 45% of those tiles, of the new tiles, mixed in.
Okay, so y'all don't use either of the rules.
No, absolutely none of the rules.
So what does the Star Trek do? I keep saying Star Trek. Star Trek. What does the Star Trek do in your version?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Don't
Okay.
even.
That's better. You don't need it.
we literally don't use it. Suburbia Inc. came with a whole new setup and distribution of tiles. The problem was it forces you to, 5 Star expansion came with a set of tiles, and it forces you to use them every game, and we just sort of mix them in instead of using the same 13 tiles per round every game. So
About the...
Oh, sorry. It's so unnecessary, because part of what you get on the Star Trek are these little bonus things. But if you have the original expansion, you already get a bonus and a challenge whenever you start a new stack of tiles. Those are already good enough. You don't need any extras. Like the benefits of the Star Trek are not. They're far outweighed by the negatives of it. So, in my opinion.
and I guess in the general game design, some game designers, when you're making the expansion, you add one too many systems, and it's just, and sometimes you just add stuff to flesh things out. I think once you go past a certain number of systems in the game, you basically you need to, either the new system has to be great to drop the other one, or you really didn't need it in the first place.
It becomes convoluted, kind of like Race for the Galaxy. You add too many expansions, and then it just is like, they had that one expansion where you like explore a space station. It's like, what am I doing? I'm playing Race to the Galaxy, and then I have a little man exploring a space station.
Right.
But, or like Arkham Horror. Like, some people want to throw like all 30 expansions in, and you're like, no, there's enough going on in Arkham Horror. We can play with like 1 or 2 expansions, and it'll be fine.
Right. And this game is best like Battlestar Galactica. It's funny how we have all these space games that have this problem. Battlestar Galactica, every expansion is good only for the cards, usually, and the other scenarios no one even uses. They play the base game.
I think people like the Pegasus board, but...
That's a board. That's not even an actual expansion. It's just like they added new spaces that actually work.
Like, people don't use the one where they land at New Caprica because that part of it is terrible. But the actual Pegasus board has some interesting actions, I think. But,
yeah.
What about the ability to play 5 players with 5 stars?
Oh, don't do it. Takes too long.
I just love to hear Charles rant about adding too many
go
players
ahead,
into
go
the
ahead,
game.
Go ahead.
I'm sure you're going to say the same thing I am, and I've actually only played the expansion once, so feel free to contradict. It just takes way too long. There's too much time, especially if you do the turn order on the little track. You could take a turn, have everyone else go twice before you get to take another turn again. That's just so much time sitting there doing nothing. It's not fun. It's not worth it.
Yeah. Sometimes you just don't need that many more people.
I don't think there's many games that Charles enjoys at their maximum player count. Like, I'm struggling to think. I feel like there's really aren't that many.
You don't want to play Seven Wonders with 11 people?
How was that Caverna game with 7 people? How long did it take, by the way?
5 hours.
Oh my god.
2 of the people were new. But anyways, let's go ahead and get back to
Sorry.
some of the tiles.
10-minute segue. Tiles in Suburbia.
I started with the law office, and your tile.
Did you start with your number 3 or your number 1?
Yeah, they're all about the same. So.
Okay. So my favorite thing to do, if I can pull it off, which is not always, is to do the airports. I want to build as many airports as I can. They're amazing. The more you have, the better they are, because they build off of each other and give each other extra boosts. Even if everyone at the table has built an airport and one comes around, it's probably still worth your while to build it because you're still going to benefit from everyone else's airport. So they're just all around good tiles. They give you both income and reputation boosts.
And there's a goal attached to them.
And there's a goal attached to them. So, and they're yellow tiles. Yellow tiles are the best.
Is reputation, is that population?
Yeah, reputation becomes population.
Oh, reputation becomes population. Okay.
That's actually, I think, the trickiest thing for new players for this game is to understand the difference between reputation and population. I feel like this is always a struggle whenever I play this with new players.
So reputation is income of population, sort of?
Basically,
Exactly.
yeah. That's basically it.
Well, my other tile is the one that used to break the base game, which is early PR firm and early casino. Both of those tiles basically lock in your income or reputation, so it can never go down when you accelerate. And if you get them early enough in the round, they're not as dominating as they used to be. They're just you'll instead of winning with them 100% of the time when you got them early, you'll probably only win 75.
They're still good.
Yeah.
Still good.
And
What's your next?
Oh, my next one would be the recycling plant. This is a C. I had to check real quick. This is in the C stack, so this is going to be a late game tile. But if you can pull it off to have sort of a group of yellow tiles together and you can plop that recycling plant down in the middle of them, it's going to be amazing. It's going to give you 2 reputation for every adjacent yellow. So that's an amazing tile.
Quick question. When you add in Suburbia Inc., do you still see all the tiles in a given game, or do you take some out?
You never see
Oh, you never
all
see
the
it.
tiles
So
in any game.
you can't really plan for the recycling plant necessarily.
I think there are 2 of them. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there are 2 of them, so your chances are fairly high of getting one.
Depending upon how many expansions you have. So.
Fair enough. I only have the first expansion,
Yeah.
so.
My next one is another A tile, which is the county assessor. This tile is extremely cheap, and it gives you $2 for every tile that you have built on the board, including the 3 that you started with. So literally, you can buy this tile. Usually, it costs you a net of $10, or actually less than that, because I think it's a $14 tile. And you immediately get like a rebate of $8. And then from the rest of the game, every regular tile you build is going to give you $2 more. It's just phenomenal. And if you double it, you're just going to make that much more money. So it's a good, quick income booster.
Alright, what do you have?
My last one, this is just my fun tile. I like to play this tile to mix up the game a little
Hater.
bit. This is an expansion tile, so you're not going to find it in the original game. This is called the Redistricting Office. It is also the sort of be a jerk to everyone tile. You get to take 5 population away from everyone else and add them to yourself. So if you're playing with 3 other people, you end up with extra 15 everyone else gets set back for. An attack tile, yes. It does cost you $6 per player, so that's also kind of fun. It's different per game. But if you can manage to get that, and if you can put a doubling tile on it and do it a second time, that's really going to push you ahead. It's just fun. It's just fun to be a jerk sometimes.
And my last one is actually 2 borders, the best early and the best late game border. One is the mountains, which is late. It gives you 2 reputation for every tile that touches it. Which you can purchase this for $18 and get 8 reputation and have no repercussions of it. All you have to do is have 4 tiles in a row. The other is her husband's absolute favorite border, the desert, which is a quick income boost of $5, and you can get it at the first turn of the game and immediately be turns ahead of everyone else. And if the goals and the challenges and the bonuses round up right, it's a great tile or border to have.
Awesome. And you only had 3, right?
I only had 3.
All right. Any other final words about Suburbia?
Final thoughts? No, I think that's it.
Oh, yeah. Actually, before we move on, how do y'all compare it to Castle Mad King Ludwig? 'Cause same designer, same basic
Castles
system.
of Burgundy?
Castle of Mad King Ludwig.
Oh, it is. I get those 2 mixed up. I
Yes.
apologize to the people who will be upset about it.
First, I like Castles of Burgundy better than Castles of Ludwig, and I also like Suburbia better than it as well.
Oh, why is that?
He added an auction mechanic onto the game that literally makes the game much longer. And it also has a number of hidden goals, and you can purchase more and more of them. Instead of basically he added many more random things. I guess people complained because Suburbia was a little bit too uniformed and programmed, and so he added a little bit of chaos to it. But I do think they're off the same tree and good, but usually you're in one camp or the other, and I happen to be in the Suburbia camp.
I haven't played it.
Oh, you haven't played it?
Sorry.
There are things I like about it better and things I like worse. I mean, the auction system's fun, but I think the tried and true method that I think Through the Ages was the first one to do it, where things just get cheaper over time. I think it's a really elegant system for any kind of game that you're acquiring things. So I think that works really well in Suburbia. And while the auction system is fun in Castles, I don't think it necessarily makes it a better game. It's probably a worse mechanic, but maybe more interesting. So that's kind of a balance there. And then what I do like about Castles, though, is the way it looks, because it's not just these hexes. You actually assemble rooms of a castle, which is really cool and has a nice visual effect in front of you. So I guess my final termination would be that Castles is a worse game, but maybe slightly more fun to play or more interesting, at least for me. So
It does look nice.
yeah.
I've actually played it 5 or 6 times, and I do not mind the game, but when I play it, I just want to play Suburbia more. So,
yeah. Both me and Charles are more, we prefer mechanics. And probably Abbie too, since you like 18XX games, and those games are not pretty to look at. But
Oh, no, I'd much rather play a game with good mechanics than one that looks nice.
Yeah. Well, all right. Well, thank you for joining us at Eternally Bored. I hope you enjoyed our discussion and our discussion about Suburbia as well. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube and Twitter at Eternally Bored. There's no space or underscore in that. And our website is www.eternallybored.com. So until next time, we're
eternally bored, so you don't have to be. Yeah.